Howdy friends! Today I'm going to teach you the most definitive way to test if your compost is ready to use. And that way is a germination test with radish seeds and a control group. So we'll start by covering why you should not use unfinished compost, then learn how to tell if your compost is ready enough to do the test, and finally we'll go over the germination test itself. We're filming today in the greenhouse because it is snowing outside. So first up, what is finished compost and why does it matter? Well, unfinished compost is compost that has not finished decomposing from your original matter into your new organic matter for your garden. And unfinished compost can inhibit the germination of your seeds, as well as harm young seedlings if you use it during transplanting. Another reason not to use it is that it can attract a variety of garden pests. If you are composting materials that had maybe some disease or some weed seeds in them, unfinished compost will not have gotten rid of those things, so you could be spreading plant diseases in your garden. And then finally, if your compost is unfinished and it still smells a bit like the original material, creatures like your very own dog might decide to eat it and then puke it up in your shoes. So only use finished compost in your garden, which is compost that has finished decomposing. So how do you know if your compost is finished enough to test it? So first, if you are not doing hot composting, there are lots of wonderful ways to do compost, and so some of this will depend on how you are composting. But if you're not doing hot composting, your first test is really time. You're going to need 6 months to even 2 years for your compost to fully decompose if you're not taking measures to kill those weed seeds if you put them in there, or if you had put any diseased plants into your compost bed. You do need to just give it plenty of time. But then you can look at the size of your compost pile, if you have a big pile, if this isn't like a worm bin or something. And the whole pile should have reduced in size by up to 1/3, or even be down to like 1/4 of its original size. So it'll be a lot smaller. If you are hot composting, the temperature should have come back down. Now, just because the temperature has come back down does not mean that it's ready. But if the temperature is hot still, like if it's still elevated, it's definitely not ready then. So should be coming down now. If you're doing and then so if you've looked at it and all those things are true, go ahead and reach into your compost and ask yourself, does this look like soil, or can you still identify any of the original components? If you're reaching into your compost and you can see vegetable peels or anything that you can really tell what it used to be, it's probably not ready. It should look like earth. It should look like... You okay? Okay. I feel like my camera person is struggling to hold the camera right now. Can you still see up here?
I can like see part of your hat.
Okay, maybe back up a bit so the camera can see everything. Okay, so, and as you're looking at it, give it a good smell. Hopefully your compost doesn't smell nasty, but if it does smell nasty, it's definitely not ready. Otherwise, once again, if you can still smell some of the original components, maybe you put citrus peels in your compost pile, if you can still smell that, or onion, or any of the original parts, it's not ready. So now, what to do if you have mostly finished compost with a few chunks of things? You can always sift through it, and especially if you're going to be using your compost for seed starting, it's good to sift through it so that you only have those smaller, fine pieces, and all of those big chunks you can go back into your compost pile. You can inoculate a new pile with it, and know that there will be a few things that will just never, like, they take a really long time to compost, and it won't hurt your compost if they're still there. Try to hold the camera still, babe. Okay. So if you see little bits of eggshell, that's totally fine. Eggshell you can put straight into the garden if you want to. That's not going to hurt anything. But other than that, like most things you want broken down. So let's assume you have a bunch of compost that meets the looking test, meets the smelling test, you've sifted it, and you want to see if you can use it for seed starting specifically. Your final test is to test the compost with a germination test. With this, you're going to set up 2 germination stations. Get your 2 pots. One of your pots should be filled with your compost. The other pot should be filled with whatever you have had success with seed starting before. If it's a store-bought soil mix, if it's soil from your garden, whatever. Just something that you have used before and you know it works well for you. And you're specifically going to sow radish seeds into here. And the radish seeds are an important part of this. That's because radish seeds are very, very susceptible to all of the chemicals and matter in compost that could, unfinished compost, that would inhibit germination. So they're going to be very sensitive and they won't germinate if your compost is too fresh still. And the other reason why radish seeds are great is because they're fast. Like in ideal circumstances, you're going to have germination in less than 3 days. So it's a very fast test and it's very reliable. If you have one tray that germinated and one tray that didn't, you know that your compost isn't ready. If they both germinate, you know it's ready. If neither germinated, something else is going on. So which is why it's important to have your control group of what typically works for you. So with all of that, I think we have covered everything, and hopefully you have learned something really helpful so that you can make the most use of your awesome compost, because compost is great for your entire garden. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer them. And if this was helpful, please consider subscribing, and we'll try to put out some more good videos. Hey, one more thing. If you loved that amazing camera work by my very special assistant, please tell him how awesome he did in the comments below. I know he would really appreciate that. And I really appreciate him. Thank you for your help, baby. Bye.